So to start off, make sure you have Explorer and Properties open. We'll find that by going to View, then clicking on Explorer and Properties. You'll know if they're enabled if we have the black boxes, and they should appear right here. Then, go to Start GUI, click the plus, and insert Screen GUI. We'll rename this to Main Menu. Then click on the plus again, insert a frame, click on that frame, then go down to Properties, go to Size, and just type in 1, then press Enter. Then, you should see a white frame covering your whole screen. If you can't, go to View, and make sure UI visibility is checked, because if it has that little cross, you can't see your UI. But, once it isn't, you'll be able to see your user interface. Then what we'll do is, we'll change the background transparency on this frame to 1. Then we'll rename this frame to, let's say, Main Frame. Next, we'll click on the plus again, click on Frame. Then we have this new frame right here. We're going to set anchor point to 0.5. So just type 0.5 into anchor point, set the size to 1, then we'll drag it here, click on any of these points, and then we'll just rescale it down to a size that is probably the best for about 1920 by 1080. So I'll use test device, and then we can use a 16 by 9 window right here. To do that, click on this right here. It should be on one of the phone settings. Just scroll down, find a HD 1080, then click on it, set it to fit to window, and then you'll get the right scalings for your user interface. Next, click on the frame again, so we can rename it. We'll name this title. So, currently it's just a white box. I want to make it look a bit nicer, so I'm going to click the plus again, insert a UI corner, click on the UI corner, change corner radius, offset to 0. You can do that by clicking the little arrow right here. Then we'll set scale to probably 0.15. Then we have some nice round corners. Then going back to the title frame, I'm going to change the color to nice little dark gray, so I'll say to 30, 30, 30. So that's quite nice color. Now we'll add a text. So click on the plus next to title, insert a text label, click on the text label, set the size to 1, then set the background transparency to 1, scroll down, then we'll set the text to title. Now you probably can't see anything, so we'll set text scale to true. If you have a bright color or a white background, you might want to keep this as black, but I have a dark background, so I'm going to set the text color free to white. And if you want, you can change the font face. I'm going to change the font face, but you don't have to. But if you want to change it, I'm going to use Montserrat, and we'll change the weight to semi-bold. That looks nice, I like that. So, we have our title done. Now, we're going to make the container for the buttons, and then we'll make the buttons themselves. So click on the title and then do Control and D or Command and D, or right click on it and click duplicate. Then I'll create another one of these frames. Click on the duplicate, open it up, we'll remove text label and UI corner, then we'll drag it down, and then we can rescale this to what we want the buttons to look like. So I'm going to rescale it to something about like this little square right here. That still looks pretty good. And just to make sure your positioning is right, go to position, and then make sure that the X is exactly 0.5, because if it isn't, then it isn't aligned to the center properly. You can also do that to the title if you want. So it won't work if you haven't changed the anchor point. So if it maybe looks like something like this when you change the X to 0.5, that is because you have not changed the anchor point. So make sure you set your anchor point. Then we'll rename this duplicate right here to buttons. We'll set the background transparency to 1. Click on the plus, and we'll insert a UI list layout. Click on the plus again, we'll insert a frame, then go down to size, then you can expand it with these arrows, set offset to 0 on both of these, then we'll set X to 1, and then we'll set Y to maybe 0.25. Then, you want to duplicate this frame 2 times, then we'll go to the UI list layout, change the padding scale to 0.1 maybe. So we want to make it perfectly fit inside this frame. So just want to mess around with the values until it perfectly fits inside this frame. Alright then, so I got my sizes. So my UI list layout is 0.08, 0, and my frame sizes are 1, 0, 0.2790. So make sure those are your sizes, and then it should look something like this. Then we can delete 2 of these, click on the plus in one of the frames, insert a text label, set the size to 1, background transparency, scroll down, we'll set the text to play, make this our play button, and you can mess around with the text, do whatever you want with it. Next, we'll click on the frame, and we'll set the color to the same as the title. You don't have to do that though, but that is what I'm going to do. And I think the text looks a bit too big, so scale the text down a bit. We'll set the anchor point to 0.5, go to position, and just type 0.5. And there we go. We have a nice little button right there. Then we'll click on the plus in the frame again, and we'll add a UI corner. Click on the UI corner, set the corner radius to 1, and then we should have a nice little round button that looks like that. I think it's a bit too high up, so we'll scale it like that, stretch it out a bit more. And I'll set the position to 0.5. There, we should have something that looks like this now. Then we'll rename this frame to play, and then we'll duplicate this 2 times. This button will be the settings button, and this button will be the credits button. We'll open up the settings button, and then we'll just change the text to the settings, and then the same for the credits. And there we go, we should have something that looks like this now. Now, to make things perfectly centered, click on the buttons frame, set the background transparency to 0, then hold Control or Command, and then we'll select the title as well. Make sure you don't select the text, just select the title frame, and then select somewhere in between here, and then we'll scale it until these rulers are perfectly centered. And now we know that the menu is perfectly aligned in the center of the screen. And if you get a bit confused here, we can set the background transparency to 0.5, and then you'll know where to click. So if we select these, we have to click in the transparent area, and then we'll be able to drag it. Otherwise, we'll be dragging inside the buttons, which is not what we want. Now, before we move on to doing the pop-ups, we're going to create the camera. By doing that, we'll go to View, and then we'll make sure the command bar is open. So we'll just click on command bar, and it should appear at the bottom right here. And if it doesn't appear, it was probably already there. So make sure it's blacked out, and then it should appear right here. We'll type in local part equals instance.new part. Then part.parent equals workspace part.cframe equals workspace.currentCamera.cframe. Part.name equals menu camera. Then it should look something like this. Then once you've done that, we're going to position our canvas to somewhere where we want the main menu to be. So I want the main menu to kind of point at the spawn area. So I'll do it somewhere like here. This is a nice position. Then we'll click on the box so we're typing in it. Then we'll just click enter. Then we can remove this from the command bar. If we zoom out, we'll get this new part spawned in. We'll click on this part. Then we'll make sure it's anchored. Can collide is off. Then we'll set the transparency to 1. Then what we want to do is next, we'll right click on the menu camera, group it as a model, and then we'll set this model to menu cam. In this model, we want to change model streaming mode to persistent. This is so that if the player is out of the streamable area, it will still be streamed in no matter what. If you don't know what streaming is, you should probably go check it out because it is basically the performance system in Roblox. So if you don't have this option, you can just ignore this, but if you want to enable streaming to get this option, click on workspace, scroll down, tick streaming enabled, and then you can change the model streaming behavior to whatever you want. But that means you've enabled streaming, and once you've done that, you can change the behavior and the model streaming mode. Now that we've done that, we'll click on the plus in mainframe, and then we'll type out local script, and insert a local script. We'll rename this local script camera. Then we can just get rid of print hello world, and if you just want to copy and paste the script and don't want to follow along, you can just go in the description and the scripts are all there. But to make the camera script, we'll do local plr equals game get service players dot local player. Then local camera part equals workspace wait for child menu cam wait for child menu camera. Then we'll do repeat, enter, wait, and then we'll do workspace.currentCamera.camera type equals enum.cameratype.scriptable. Then we'll do another line, workspace.currentCamera.cFrame equals CameraPart.cFrame. Then on until, we'll do a space, workspace.currentCamera.cFrame equals, make sure there's two equals, CameraPart.cFrame. Then it just looks something like this. To make sure that we have the camera set up, we'll just do a quick playtest. Click the play, and once you've loaded in, it should look something like this, and your camera's been reset. You can tell that my camera is not following my player character down there right now. If this doesn't work for you, what I'll do is go to View, go to Output, and check for any errors. If there's an error, click on the error, and then it'll tell you what you need to do to fix it. So now before we go into scripting the buttons, we're going to make the pop-ups. So we can click the arrows on both of these, and we'll click both of these, scroll down, set visible to false, insert a new frame, click on the plus in main frame, and we'll insert something called a canvas group. This is basically just a normal frame, but it has a few more properties that make it pretty cool. So what we'll do is, we'll set the size to 1, we'll scale it down like we did with the title, until it has a decent size for the pop-ups. I would say this is a decent size. We'll set the anchor point to 0.5, set the position to 0.5, and it should look something like this. Next, we'll add a UI corner, and we could do something like 0.15 like with the title. I think that's a bit too round. We'll do 0.05, 0.1, 0.08. That's nice. I like 0.08. Then we'll click on the canvas group, and we'll set background transparency to 1. Then click on the plus and insert a frame. Click on this frame, set the size to 1, set the anchor point to 0.5, set the position to 0.5, then add a UI corner which is the same as the canvas group, so it's 0.08. Then we'll make this frame the same as the title, 30, 30, 30. Then we can add a text. We'll scale it down a bit, set the background transparency to 1, change the font, change the scale, change the color, and I'll set the text X alignment to left. We'll put it up in the corner right here. This can be our settings pop-up, so I'll set the text to settings, and it should look something like this. Next, we'll name the frame settings. We'll click on the plus, insert a new frame, then we'll scale this frame down. Make sure you set the size to 1. It should look something like this. We'll set the X alignment to 0.5. Do not set the Y alignment, we don't need to set that. And we'll set the position on X to 0.5. Then click on the plus for frame, insert UI corner, click on the UI corner, and then we'll make something that fits with the borders here. So we could try 0.1 or 0.08, 0.06. You should just move it down a tiny bit. There we go, that looks good. So we'll set this frame to just a slightly darker color, so we'll do 252525, and it should look something like this. Then we have a nice little frame right here. And once you've got this frame, we'll rename this to contain. Next, we'll add a UI list layout, like we did with the buttons. Then we'll insert a frame. We'll set the X size to 1. And we'll set the Y size to something like 0.2. I'd say that's pretty reasonable. If you're going to add more than maybe 4 settings, I would change contain to a scrolling frame instead of a normal frame, so that way you can scroll through the frame. But I'm only going to add 1 setting for this, so I can demonstrate how to do the settings. But if you want to add more settings, you're going to have to do that yourself. So inside this newly created frame, we'll click on the plus. We'll add a UI corner. Then we'll add something that properly wraps around the contain. So just to make sure that we get everything right, I'll change this to brighter color. Then we'll go to the UI corner. So for me, I got 0.325 for the UI corner. Next, we'll click on contain, and we'll set this back to 252525. Then on this frame, we'll set this to something like 353535. It just looks something like this. Then we can duplicate this text label, put it into the frame, resize it, and put it there. Now this will be the name of the setting, so we'll scroll down, change the text, and we'll name this shadows. Then on the upper side, we'll duplicate it again, move over to the other side, and change text X alignment to right. Then we'll click on both of them by control clicking, and then we'll center them. We'll rename this setting. We'll rename the second text to on off, and then we'll change the text to on, because for me shadows are on by default, but if they're off by default, I'll just change it to off. We'll rename this frame to just shadows. Then click on the plus, add a text button, and then we'll set the size to 1, and then set the background transparency to 1. Scroll down, and then on text, just press backspace and then press enter. So then we'll have no text, but we'll have a clickable button. Then what we'll do is we'll click on the plus for this text button, insert a local script, and then I left the script in the description as well, like with the camera script, but you can follow along if you like to. So we'll do local button equals script.parent, local on off equals true, button dot mouse button one click colon connect function. If on off equals true, then on off equals false. Then we'll do game colon get service lighting dot global shadows equals false, script dot parent dot on off dot text equals off. So this right here turns the shadows off. Then we'll do else. We'll copy this right here, doing Control C, then we'll paste it in, and we'll change this to true, change this to true, and then change this to on. Like I said before, if your shadows are off by default, you just want to change this to false. For me, they're on by default. So there, we have our settings. And now what we'll do is we'll open the buttons, we'll copy the play button, and then we'll paste it inside of the settings. So Control C, then Control Shift and V into settings. Then we'll rescale this down to up here. I'll move it down. Then we'll change this to back. I'll change the background color free to a nice little shade of red. Then we'll change the play text to back. And just to make sure, we'll insert a text button, and we'll do the same like we did with the shadows. And set size to 1, set background transparency to 1, and set the text to just backspace and enter. And then what we can do is, we can copy this text button, and then we'll go to buttons, select all the frames of the buttons, and then do Control Shift and V. And then we'll insert the button inside of all of them. And there we go, there's our settings pop-up. Now, what we'll do is, we'll click on the settings, we'll duplicate it, and the old one, we'll go down to position, and set the Y to 1.5. Then for this new one, we'll rename this to credits, open it up, and we'll change the text to just credits. Inside contain, we'll remove the shadows, and then we'll add a text label. We'll change the size on the X to 0 on the offset, and 1 on the X, and 1 on the scale. Offset to 0 on the Y, and for scale, we'll do 0.2 on the Y axis. And remember, you can change this to a scrolling frame if you have multiple people working on your project, but since it's just me working on this base plate, I'll just put myself in. So we'll change the background transparency, scroll down, text color, change that to white, change the font, remember, optional, text scaled, then I'll just add myself. So we're just gonna add something pretty simple, but if you want to add another person, so I'm just gonna shout out one of my friends. We'll just duplicate the text, and then we'll just change the text. So that's how you add another person to the credits. Now we'll do the same with the credits, change position on the Y-axis to 1.5, then we can go to buttons and title, and then we can make them visible again. So it looks like this. Now, we're going to get to the part that I've been waiting for. We're going to click on the plus in mainframe, insert a local script, We'll name this local script main script. And now we get rid of this. And then we're going to define everything. But before we do that, we're going to make sure that we have a transition frame. So we click on the plus in main menu. We'll add a frame. Make sure it isn't under main frame. We want it under the screen UI. Then we'll set the size to 1. Background color free to maybe 10, 10, 10. Then we'll set the anchor point on the x-axis to 0.5. The position on the x-axis to 0.5 as well, but not on the y-axis. Change the scale on the position axis to -1, and then it should appear above there. And if you can still see it, which is not what we want, make sure border size pixel is 0. Now, going back to our main script, I've left everything individually that would be inside this main script in the description, like I do with the rest of the scripts. So if you want to use those, go ahead. But you're probably going to need some configuration if you've done some extra work, and I'll be explaining everything of how it works in this part. So, starting off, we'll define the tweens. So we'll do local tween service equals game get service tween service. Then we'll do local button tween equals tween info dot new. We'll do 0.25 enum.easing style dot quad enum.easing direction dot in out. You can change these to whatever you want, but I'll just keep this as these for now. And once the animations do work, then you can change these and have a little bit of fun with them. Then we'll just copy this and we'll paste it down 4 times. And we'll change button tween to frame tween. Then for the other two, we'll do transition tween 1. We'll copy transition tween 1 on here, and then we'll do transition tween 2. For frame tween, we're just going to change this to 1, and then we'll do it for 1 on all these as well. But here, we'll do in on frame transition tween 1, and out on transition 2. And that's basically it for the tweens. Next, we'll define all of the frames, so we'll do local main frame equals script.parent, and we'll do local buttons equals mainframe.buttons, local popups equals mainframe.popups. So, I did forget this. Make sure we change the name of the canvas group to Popups. I should have done that when I made the canvas group, so that's a problem on my end. I'm sorry. So, mainframe.popups, local title equals mainframe.title. Then we'll define the buttons themselves, so we'll do local play button equals buttons.play. Then we'll do the same for the other 2 buttons, so local settings button equals buttons.settings. Local credits button equals buttons.credits. Next, we'll define the transition, so make sure we change the name of the transition to transition. Then local transition equals mainframe.parent.transition. So it should look something like this. So we have the tweens, we have the mainframes, we have the buttons, and then we have the transition. So to start off, we'll be doing the button animations. So it makes the buttons look a little nicer and it'll show a little hover effect basically. To do that, we'll have to check through the buttons and if they So to do that, we gotta check if the mouse is hovering over one of the buttons. To do that, we'll do for I v in pairs buttons get children do. Then we'll just looks like this. We'll do if v is a frame, then v dot mouse enter connect function tween service create v dot v button tween, and then we'll do these little squiggly brackets right here, and then we'll put in background color free equals color free dot from RGB. Then once you type from RGB, click inside these brackets and then click on this little color palette icon. Here you can select a random number, so this is going to be the number where the mouse hovers over the button. You can change this to whatever you want, but I'm just going to change it to a slightly brighter color of the dark gray, which should be 40, 40, 40. And at the end, we'll do play. Then we'll copy these 3 lines again, paste them in, and we'll change mouse enter to mouse leave. And then we'll change the color to the default color, which is 30, 30, 30. If you want to do individual colors for each time you hover over something, you're going to have to do the button, which we could do play button dot mouse enter on a connect function, and then you could do the tween, but that's a bit lengthy, and I'm only using the same color for all the buttons. So if you want to do that, that's what you can do, but I'm going to keep it like this. So next we're going to be making the functions for the pop-ups. To do that, we'll do a local function open pop-up, and then we'll define the closing of the pop-ups, which is local function close pop-up. So starting off, we'll do open pop-up. So inside these brackets, we're going to put pop-up name, and we'll do the same for the close pop-up. Then inside here, we'll do for IV in pairs, and we'll do buttons colon get descendants. So not get children, get descendants. If v colon is a text button, then v.visible equals false. So what this is basically going to do is it's going to make it so the player can constantly click the buttons and then try and mess something up. So this is just for debugging. Then what we'll do is we'll do tween service colon create. We'll do buttons frame tween, and then we'll do in these squiggly brackets pop-ups. In these squiggly brackets we'll do position equals udin2.new, and then what we want to do is we want to, for the buttons, we want them to tween down. So for the buttons we want to do something like 1.10. So if I check this out, if I click on buttons, if I change the Y position to 1.1, it'll go down there, which is what we want. Then we'll do play, we'll copy this, and instead of buttons, we'll do title, and here we'll change the position on the Y to something like minus 0.15. And we'll do 2 more lines, so we'll paste this in again, but we'll change buttons, and here we'll do pop-ups, colon find first child, pop-up name. So look at that, and then we'll change position to 0.50, 0.50. Should look like that. We can have a line, then we'll do pop-ups, colon find first child. We'll do pop-up name, dot back, text button, dot visible equals true. So this makes it so the back button is able to be clicked if it isn't. Because on the close pop-up, we're going to make it so it can be clicked, and this will just re-enable the clicking of it. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to copy this again, and we're just going to paste it into close pop-up, and then we just want to reverse things. So v.visible should be true, this should be false, this should be 1.5, and then on the positions for the buttons, we want to set it to its current position, which is 0.50, 0.7290, so we got to change this to 0.729. Then on the title, we'll change it to 0.299, and there we go. That is close pop-up done. Now we gotta make all the checks and check when a button is clicked. So we'll do settings button dot text button dot mouse button one click colon connect function. Then inside here we'll do open pop-up. Then we'll do settings inside some quotation marks. Then we'll copy this, and so instead of settings button we'll do credits button, and we'll change this to credits. So make sure that these texts here match the name of the pop-up, otherwise it won't work. So we'll do the check for the back button. So we'll do popups.settings.back.text button.mouse button one click colon connect function. We'll do close pop-up settings. We'll copy this again, we'll change this to credits, and then we'll change this to credits as well. And there we go. Those are the pop-ups done completely. So just to check that everything works, we'll do a quick playtest, and then we'll move to doing the play button. So let's go. So we're in the game. We click on settings. The settings pop-up is brought up. The shadows button is working. We'll click back, and then it will bring us back to the main menu. Click on credits. We get the credits. We'll click back, and there we go. Seems like everything is working pretty well so far. Now, we'll go to the play button. So, if you notice in that video, you can see a big black bar above there. That's not what we want. So, make sure you click on the screen's UI, set reset on spawn to false, and set ignore GUI inset to true. Then going back to our main script, we'll make 2 new lines, and we'll do play button, dot text button, dot mouse button 1 click, colon connect, function. Then basically what we want to do is, we want to copy everything from open popup here, paste it into here, and we can just remove the stuff relating to popups, and then we'll do tween service, colon create, transition tween 1, and we'll do position in the little squiggly brackets, udin2, dot new, we'll do 0.5000, because we didn't set the Y for the anchor point, so we don't need to change that. Do colon play. Then we'll do wait 1. We'll copy this, and then we'll play again, but we want it to go to 1 on the y-axis. Then what we want to do is we want to make sure the camera is changed, so we'll do workspace dot current camera dot camera type equals enum dot camera type dot custom. Then wait 1. Script.parent colon destroy. Then this will clear out the main menu, so the player cannot go back to it because reset on spawn is disabled. And then your player is in the game. So let's test it out and see if it works. So we're in the game. We have our title, the settings, the credits, and the play button. We'll click on settings first. We have our shadows. We have our credits. And then we have the play button. And it seems like everything works, which is great. If nothing is on our output, which nothing is, we have finished the main menu tutorial. So, thank you for watching. I hope this was helpful in any way, and I hope it works for you. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.